Hi everybody, it's Honest John. It is amazing how easy it is to terrify Americans. It was incredibly easy for the Bush administration to lie us into war with Iraq because we were so afraid that the calmer voices were shouted out. It really wasn't hard to learn that Iraq didn't have any weapons of mass destruction. It took me about 15 minutes online. And there were people who were telling us that truth. But they were drowned out by the hysteria. Gun owners here in the States are so afraid that they interpret the most sensible ideas to prevent gun violence as a threat. Now, it's only a minority of Americans that are terrified that we have a black president, but it is a large minority. And when Obamacare came along, once again, they were absolutely terrified. And it was only a minor change in our healthcare system, really. Nowhere near enough to actually fix it. But the reaction to it was pure hysteria. It was a government takeover, which it wasn't. There were death panels. It was the end of freedom. Now that it's been in effect for a while, we can see that there really isn't much different. We're still as free as we were before it. All that happened was Americans got more Americans got health insurance. We're spending way more than we can really afford at the border because we're terrified of the people who come here to pick our oranges and grapes. So the states pass these insane laws that cause the price of our food to go up because we're afraid. Our immigration system is a total mess. It's so screwed up that it actually costs our economy billions of dollars every year. But we can't fix it because we're afraid of everybody. We're so afraid about climate change that we won't even admit it's a problem. And now we have the Ebola hysteria. We're terrified that we're going to get a disease that is actually very difficult to catch. We've had 2 cases here in the United States that have people got infected in the United States. That was in Texas, where you could reliably depend on the people there to screw things up. And it wasn't the CDC that screwed things up. It was the Texas healthcare providers, and it was the hospital. Right? It was a perfect example of what's wrong with the for-profit healthcare system, because instead of immediately going out and getting the protective gear the nurses needed, they just ordered it by regular channels because they didn't want to spend some extra money. But that's Texas. It's unfortunate, though, that that's where these cases happen, because they have created hysteria all across the nation, which has led to these quarantine rules that the states some states are coming up with, which are all those quarantine rules are going to do is to discourage health workers from going over to West Africa and fighting Ebola there. If we stop it there, then we have nothing to worry about. But if we let it become a worldwide crisis, well, then we might have a little concern. So these quarantine laws may actually contribute to the spread of Ebola, may actually contribute to it coming here in a way that we can't deal with. I'd like to think that most Americans are brave, but I saw the survey recently that 80% of the people support these quarantine rules, which means that 80% of the people haven't bothered to educate themselves and they're chicken shit like a motherfucker. You know, it says in the national anthem, land of the free and home of the brave. Well, we're really not very brave. And because we're not very brave, we're not anywhere near as free as we should be. The threat of terrorism, the main threat of terrorism is that it scares us into doing stupid things. But so far, that threat hasn't made much of a difference because being terrified is our natural state. Thanks for listening.